For those of you who do not know me yet, I am Ron Levine from Mindfulness and Blue Jeans. And what I'd like to cover this morning is energy. What I have found in my experience through the course of mindfulness and insight meditation is that energy is really a process of opposites. It's this movement and transition between states of on and off, expansion and contraction, increasing, decreasing intensity. Whether we're talking physically, mentally, emotionally, it's all about transition. There's no in without the out. There's no up without the down. It encompasses all of it. And this is why very often in Buddhist practices and Zen practices, you'll hear about non-duality. Because what we do as people with these minds that we have, we try to create separation. We're trying to separate the parts that we want from the parts that we don't want. And somehow, even though we're trying to be logical about it, we don't notice that that doesn't really make any sense. It's not possible. So in my experience, when it comes to energy and often feeling a lack of energy, what I have found is the issue isn't really that the energy we're seeking isn't there. The problem is how we're using the energy that is there. Very often we're wanting it to be other than it is, wanting it to be different, feeling certain sensations and labeling them as anxiety or sluggishness, or at the opposite end of the spectrum, restlessness. And what ends up happening is we try to change or suppress the energy that we are perceiving or labeling in a negative way using the other energy that we're not perceiving or labeling in that way. So we end up with this civil war happening between what we perceive as this energy versus that energy. Do we manage to suppress or get rid of the energy that we feel like we don't like? No, it doesn't work. If that worked, we would have found a way to make that work by now. But what we do in that process is waste the other energy that we are using in an attempt to change or suppress that negatively perceived energy, which in the process makes us feel depleted and adds another bit of negativity to the pile. So it doesn't really end well. What I'd like to do now is go through a guided sitting where we work on breaking that kind of cycle, where we are opening just to the sensation of raw energy, just the energy that is here, exactly as it is. Maybe with an element of curiosity and openness. Let's sit with that for a bit. I always like to begin my sittings by imagining that I am suspended from the ceiling by a string attached to the top of my head as a nice cue to sit up straight. And I also notice that I am grounded at the bottom, being supported by the chair, the floor. Noticing this grounding at the bottom and this lifting at the top. And as we do that, let's begin to notice the breathing process that is happening between those two poles, wherever you happen to notice the breathing. It might be at the nostrils, might be at the back of the throat, might be in the chest, might be in the diaphragm. But here's what I'd like you to notice. I'd like you to notice the breathing simply as energy. We don't need to control that energy. We don't need to shape that energy. We can. We have that option. In some practices, we do that. I'm offering the opportunity to simply let it be the energy that it is, without controlling, without shaping. And seeing how that feels, what that is like, the raw breath energy coming in and going out. You may choose to notice that energy in one particular spot. You may choose to notice that flow of energy through the entire in-breath and out-breath and just follow its trajectory. What is the felt sense of that movement, that transition? Between the in that cannot be without the out. The rising that cannot be without the falling. And I invite you to notice if there are any parts in the body experiencing tension, tightness. And notice that if there are any such areas, those are also energy. And as I said before, we don't need to expend other energy trying to change or suppress that energy. I have found that to be wasteful, unskillful. Again, in my experience, the problem isn't that we don't have enough energy, it's that we're misusing the energy we do have. So if there is some tension energy happening, we can notice that as raw energy, just like the breathing. And in fact, what you may do is breathe into that energy. Notice what happens when the breath energy meets tension energy. Not in an attempt to change, suppress, shape, steer. Changes will happen on their own. They have to. We're just here to see what happens. What happens when the raw breath energy meets raw tension energy, or whatever kind of raw energy you are experiencing in the body right now? Does not have to be tension. What effect does the raw breath energy have when it meets other energy? If you are experiencing some thinking energy pulling you away from the attention to the breathing energy, that'll happen. We have minds. They like to think. That's energy too. And it's allowed. It's allowed to happen. It has to be. We don't really have a choice. It's going to happen. I mean, we can fight that energy too. I've never found that to be very fruitful either. But right now we are focusing our attention on the breathing energy. So if thinking energy comes up and takes us away, we notice sooner or later. And come back to the breathing energy. And if we have a thought that we're doing the practice poorly because thinking energy is happening, we just notice, okay, that's a thought. That's more thinking energy. And I've just noticed it. And now I'm coming back to the breathing energy. And we can just leave it at that. What we're doing is moving. Again, moving. Energy. Transition. We're moving from getting caught up in the content of that thinking energy to noticing the process. Of how our energy moves, transitions, is non-dual. We may be having some anxiety or anticipation about what our day might bring. That's a quality of energy as well. Feeling a sensation, coupling it with a thinking energy, and perceiving or labeling it as anxiety or anticipation, fear, excitement, dread. All energy. None of them existing without the opposite. Which ironically is why there's non-duality, because they're all the same thing. Which is why it really doesn't make much sense to focus on the kind of experience we think we want to have. The only thing that really makes sense is to focus on the experience we're having. The experience we're creating for ourselves. What kind of experience are we creating? We're going to have a very different experience depending on whether we are trying to suppress some of our energy using other energy, or simply allowing the energy that is here to be. And to see what that's like. And I invite you as you go through your day to check in. Where am I feeling an energetic sense right now? What happens when breath energy meets that energy? What is the process of this energy? Noticing the sensation, the perception, perhaps some recognition, a feeling about what it's like, the memories it evokes. And noticing what we're doing with that energy. I'm going to close the sitting with a short quote from Thanissaro Bhikkhu. He says, "It's common to think of the breath as the air passing in and out through the nose, and this can be a useful perception to start with. Use whatever blatant sensations you associate with that perception as a means of establishing mindfulness, developing alertness, and getting the mind to grow still. But as your attention gets more refined, you may find that level of breath becoming too faint to detect. So try thinking of the breath instead as the energy flow in the body, as a full body process. Thank you, folks. Notice what your day is like based on what we've talked about here this morning, and just check in throughout the day and see, okay, what's here? What's the felt sense? What am I doing with it? And then based on that, we figure out what is skillful, right? What decreases our suffering as we go through life? That's what this is all about. I hope this was enjoyable for you. And please do share that these are happening with any friends on Insight Timer or elsewhere. I try to reach as many people as I can. This has helped me so much over the past almost 25 years now. And this is my way of giving back. If I can help some other folks the same way I've been helped and I'm still helped, that's really what this is all about. I think we'll wrap it up there, and I hope to see you all soon again. Have a great day. Thanks so much, everyone. Cheers. Take care.